right, people, so this is it, and that is what you'll be having. So by the time you bring it, you know this is pepper, so by the time it comes in the way it should be, you can see the flay effects. Okay, so by the time you join it, it flays out for you. So you can see the flays right here. Okay, so fabric, the choice of fabric will help bring out the effect for you, but I'm just showing you what you are going to have at the end of the day. As you can see, after you cut it on fabric, it returns back. So for this, I set it aside and I come over to the back pattern. So for the back pattern, simply divide. Let's work with center slash, just center slash. So once I get to the chest line, I'll go this way and I will go in this way. Can you see that? That is that. I'll come back with my pattern paper and repeat the same thing, the same process. I'll just simply repeat what I just did on the other. So I'll just apply my adhesive and do same. Okay, so at this point I also ensure I have it at 1.5. Okay, so I'll just bring the one that should be at that 1.5 closer. So here I will just connect. Okay, you still have the flay effect. I don't have much paper, but I believe you understand what I'm doing here. So this part will just go in this way and go into this way. Okay, so by the time you fill in this space, so like this, I just have filled it. Okay, so I'll now go in this way. That way. All right, so that is that. So by the time you cut this on your fabric, by the time you bring them together, this is front, you kiss right to, you know how we do that, to stitch. So you stitch your shoulder seam line, you stitch your shoulder seam line, you sew the sides together, so you can see the side is matching up exactly at that point. Can you see? And from here you sew to this point. That is exactly where we have the point. So it's going to stop here while the rest flows for you. So at the end of the day, you have the flay effect. And I think this is the simplest method if I'm making this dress. Okay, so you have it. So if you are making using the other method, that is the, if you are using the 180 degrees to form this, because some of us, we want a very quick method for it. So if you are doing very quick method for it, if this is your fabric, you know your 180 degrees, this is how the 180 degrees flay is going to be folded. So I'll just pretend using what I have, still on the small scale. So if I fold my 180 degrees, this is what I'm supposed to get. So the first thing I'm going to do is to measure the length of my flay. So the length of my flay in a small scale drafting, I'm going to use everything I have here to serve as that length of my flay. So I have 11. I'll mark 11. I'll mark 11. I'll mark 11. I'll mark 11. Okay, so that is what I have there as the length of my flay. So I'll cut it. It's 180 degrees. I'll cut it now. I want to put it here because we have back and front. So since we have back and front, I will cut everything back and front. So we start constructing on our back and on our front. So I have front, I have back. So I call this my front and I'll call this my back. So for this particular design, this is what I'm going to do. I'll start working on the front. So for the front, definitely here on fold should be your center front line. So I'm going to mark out my neckline. Okay, so from here I'm going to mark out what I have on the neckline. So for you to do that, just simply make a line this way. You first of all chop off a line. That's this line you are making will serve as your shoulder line. So as a small scale drafting I'm using here, you have to measure what you have here to ensure is half of your shoulder. So if your shoulder is a 16 inches, half here should be 8 inches. Okay, so you can do 8.5 because you need seam allowance. So from here will now serve as your shoulder. This point will now serve as your shoulder. And all vertical measurements, the chest line, this will be the chest line point. You also follow this line on your fabric to mark your chest line point. So if here is my shoulder, I'll measure my neckline. You know how we do that. The neckline width and neckline depth, I'll connect. My shoulder slant line 1 inch, I will connect. On the chest line, I'll measure my bust, my shoulder, the same measurement of my shoulder, I'll connect and connect. I'll find the mid armhole, I will connect. I'll bring it in by 0.75 and take my bust radius and connect. So the whole thing goes like this. So from this point, you are going to connect back to this line, and that becomes your the shape of this gown. So from here, from the shoulder, I'm going to measure the hip. Remember, we worked with the hip. So if this is the hip, I'll just trace the hip the way it is here. I'll trace the hip to this point. So remember, we got the midline. So the midline of this should be from here to here. That is the midline. So I'll be using that midline connection which we did. I'll just do this on this. Can you see? Open up my paper. I'll transfer this on the fabric with my chalk and open up my paper. You can see where I transferred it, and this is still the midline. So what I transferred here is this measurement, but remember that from here we came in by 3 inches, so you don't even need to transfer. So just come in here, measure your 3 inches and connect back to the center line. So by the time I cut this pattern, you will notice that what we have on the drafted one will even give you a better effect. Okay, so I'll just cut from here. It will give you a better effect. So I'll fold it back, and this is the side to the armhole. Let me just chop off my armhole, my neckline, my armhole where the sleeve will be attached. So people, this is what we have. Can you see? So by the time you sew, you still have the flow, if the effect of the what we had in the other one. So I would say, if I'm working on this, I'm going to work with my pattern. So this is the 360 for the front. I'll keep it aside, and I'll come over to the back. So for this, the back has a zipper or a button. It depends on what you want. Okay, so at the end of the day, we'll split this apart and add our seam allowance on the fabric, the same with the patterned one. So here I'll also do the same thing I did. You cross it this way, so you'll be able to get the length. Okay, cross it this way to be able to get the chest. So once you have connected the back neckline, it's usually 1 inch to this, you slant, you come in with your shoulder line, measure and connect your armhole as usual, and connect up to that point. Okay, so once you have done that, remember this is the center line, and we came up, we matched what we have, because this and this, when you open them together, this part will be like this. So if it is like this, it means that this part, as we constructed, I'll just take it to the other part, is going to be connected the same way, and this part also, we came up from here, will also be connected the same way. Okay, so in other words, this is what I'll just do to save our time. I'll just place it at center front line like this to save our time. So once I place it here, I'll just go this way to that point. Once I go that way, I'll just slant my, so I'll have that squared effect. I'll come here to this point. I'll now take it to have that square effect. Okay, so that is that, and I'll come up. So this is more squared like we had in the other pattern. So I'll just come up and make my back neckline, shoulder seam line, armhole, to the chest, and then to the length of the dress. So you can see this is the back pattern and this is the front pattern. Okay, so if this is the front pattern, back pieces this, you sew the shoulder seam lines together, the sides together. At the end of the day, you have 360. Once you hold it here, everything folds in, as you can see on the thumbnail. So here is the pattern I would love to work with if I'm making this dress. And now this is what the front looks like, and the back, this is what the back looks like. So I'll simply split my back from this point. Remember, it's going to have a zipper. So before you cut on your fabric, add 0.5 inch as your zipper allowance. So you are going to cut this separately. So unless you want to attach a button, some people also can open here and do facing. Okay, so if you want the facing method, as I just opened, you can do facing and leave the whole of this without splitting. If you need zipper, you split the whole and add your seam allowances. So this is how we come to the end of this tutorial, and I believe you learned a lot from this class. So if you are new to this channel, please kindly subscribe, turn on your notification bell to receive videos like this every day. Like this video, share to family and friends, drop your comments on the comment section and your suggestions as well. Thank you for coming, and see you in